street corner. What does this mean in terms of open saloons?
There is no way that there will be any open saloons in this city. Tom Head, who is head of the local Alcoholic Beverage Commission in this town, is one of the finest men I've ever seen in my life. He's one of the finest law enforcement officers in my life, and I'll guarantee you, if it's left up to that man, this will be the cleanest operation. I mean, cleaner than it was in the past. And as far as I'm concerned, except for the very legitimate top-drawer private clubs, I'm ready to put them out of business. And I feel like Mr. Head would probably, has indicated to me he felt the same way.
General Motors depends on the railroads to carry parts to its assembly plants as well as to carry away the finished cars. Had the strike not ended, the GM plant in Arlington would have had to shut down by tomorrow night. As it is, the 3,500 union workers here will continue on the job. Before the back-to-work order was issued, take two. General Motors depends on the nation's railroads to carry parts to its assembly plants as well as to carry away its finished cars. Had the strike not ended, the GM assembly plant in Arlington would have had to shut down by tomorrow night. As it is, the 3,500 union workers here will continue on the job. Before the back-to-work order was issued to the striking signalmen, GM officials were conducting a desperate inventory to determine if there were enough parts on hand to continue operations until the end of the week. That inventory has become unnecessary now, and GM management and workers alike are breathing a little easier. This is Jay Lewis, Channel 8 News on the Move, Arlington.
The 98th Annual Forum of the National Conference on Social Welfare has reached the halfway point at Dallas Memorial Auditorium. Today's sessions took up the subjects of social revolution in the Southwest, the emerging role of state organizations in health and welfare, Puerto Ricans, their needs and aspirations, and federal revenue sharing, community development. One of those participating in today's sessions was Dr. Alan Wade, president of the National Association of Social Workers. During a news conference, I posed the question, their opinion of the welfare reform submitted by the Nixon administration.
To the extent that the president's approach to welfare reform would move us in the direction of a guaranteed income, a floor under income for all Americans, we would support it. However, the floor that he is proposing is so low that, and the various restrictions, many of the restrictions applying to the current bill are so great that we are in the unfortunate position of having to oppose that bill at this particular time. It's simply inadequate.
But isn't that a start?
I would say that it is a start, and this makes it difficult for us to oppose it. However, we're concerned that if we come out foursquare in support of a bill of a program that's inadequate, again we'll be mortgaging the future, and the next generation or in the next decade will have to face this problem all over again.
Dr. Wade conceded his main objection to the president's welfare reform package was the dollar amount on the income floor. We talked this afternoon with Mr. Floyd H. Hyde, an administration official who is Assistant Secretary for Community Development, HUD. We got his reaction to Dr. Wade's objections.
Well, I think one can always debate whether there's enough money in any program. And if you get locked up into that debate, you're going to lose the battle over such a debate. If you go back, I think history shows us this very clearly. Go back to Social Security. There was great debate of how, whether we could afford it or not back in the 30s. But they kept to the concept that this was important for the retirement of working people. Now, once you get that concept established, then as years go by and as our economy and our ability to pay increases, then you can discuss whether it's enough or too much or what.
Mr. Hyde did reply to a pointed question about is it fair. He said it is, quote, unfair to oppose the president's plan on the one point, that being the dollar floor for income. This conference continues at the Memorial Auditorium through Friday the 21st. This is Jim Mitchell, Channel 8 News on the Move.
it looks like to me like it's going to be a fast track. They haven't had much moisture, and the roughs are not very high, and the fairways have to be a little hard, regardless of how much water you put on it. The natural water will penetrate the ground much better than when you put it on with the sprinkler. So it's going to be a fast track. The greens look good. So I think it's going to take about the same as it did last year to win here, 6, 7 under par.
Do you think that you're going to be as close to the top as you were last year?
Well, I hope I have the same lead with 5 holes to go. Maybe I'll be able to hold on, but I don't know. I seem to be playing well. The last 36 holes, I shot 133 at the Houston Champions, which is a tremendous score. It was 9 under par for the last 36 holes, and I finished 1 shot out. So I think I'm as ready as I'm going to be.
With that kind of lead with 5 holes to play, do you hope that Homero is right behind you like he was?
Well, I hope so, because we can make it a Mexican Open again. If I don't win, maybe he can. I told Littler last year when he was coming down the 18th, I said, if you birdie this hole, I'm going to throw you in the water. I said, there's no way that a white man's supposed to be 2 Mexicans. You know, this is what did they say? I guarantee you.
How much preparation do you have to go into to go into a tournament like this?
Well, not too much. It all depends on how you come out of the past week. If you played very poorly the past week, and there's something wrong with your game somewhere along the line, you're either driving it bad, putting bad, or hitting some bad iron shots. So then you have to get down to business and prepare for it for 3 days. But if you're playing well, like I played last week, then you don't do too much. Like yesterday, I took off and I didn't do much. I went to the zoo, and they almost locked me up over there. I had a hard time getting back out again, but I'm glad to see you guys out covering it. But I wanted to send a little message to one of your to comrades back at the studio, and I wanted to tell Verne to be sure and come out, because that little gal from the Byron Nelson Classic in the hot pants told me to tell you that she's going to be here again this year.
Education, which is the great problem solver of the 20th century, is being stymied by the administration in Washington. Today, the authorization for public education funds is being only funded by half for the budget submitted by this administration. In fact, President Nixon twice during his administration has vetoed bills for public education. I think it's time to turn that around. I think it's time to tell the President that the school children of this nation, the young college people, need the help from the national administration, and half a job won't get it done.
What specific funds for education are being withheld?
These are funds that would help in the construction of higher education facilities and the school lunch programs, and providing milk and food for those children who might not otherwise receive it in the school cafeterias.
Verne, I think that it's alleviated all my arm troubles. I know I've thrown better the last 2 weeks than I probably had the last 2 years. Right now, I've got to get the strength back in it. I know that I noticed a lot of weakness in my shoulder where I didn't notice it last year, but now that I have a healthy elbow, I notice I can throw with the proper motion that I've been lacking the last few years, and I think right now that the injuries are subsided. I don't want any more, and I won't have any more. I've had enough.
You know, I recall talking with you shortly after the Super Bowl game, Craig, and you indicated then, and most of us had thought the problem was in the shoulder, but it was, in fact, the elbow that bothered you most of the year.
Right. When they went in there to find out what was wrong, they found that the nerve and tendons were growing together with scar tissue, and what they did is they went in there and freed them both up and took a few chips off the elbow, and it actually made all the difference in the world. Right now, there's no more soreness like there was before, and I'm able to really throw the ball like I used to be able to.
It's been 4 months since the Super Bowl, and a period in which you took a tremendous amount of harassment from the fans and from the press. Have you done a lot of self-contemplation in the off-season?
Yes, I think I really had to self-evaluate because everybody else was evaluating me, and I had to see if they were right in some of their ways. And maybe in some instances they were correct in evaluating me, but I've always said that I didn't really have a particularly too good a year in my mind, but statistical, I was up there with the top 5 quarterbacks in football, and that's overall in both leagues, and I'm not satisfied with it, but it wasn't a bad year considering my arm problems and everything. And what I want to do is have a more consistent year. I think that that's one thing I've been lacking, and of course my major goal, and I think the goal of our team, is the Super Bowl, and we've got a long way to come back again, but I think that we've got a lot of things going for us. We've got a great attitude, and I think this is going to help us start off with a successful training camp, and I believe that we're going to have another great year.
Though amateur art shows are proving more and more popular throughout our area, it's still nice to see the work of professionals. Here on the terrace level of the Fairmont Hotel, the work of 5 such artists went on display last night. The collection being displayed by Felix Vercel of Paris and New York came under scrutiny of the Big D social set at a very fancy affair last evening. Among those seen at the gathering was Mrs. John R. Black, Jr., who took the occasion to chat with art connoisseur Vercel about one of the 38 pieces on display. The $250,000 worth of paintings probably felt right at home in the elegant company it was keeping. The participants channeled much of their attention toward a huge painting of an early 20th century French fire engine by artist Venard. While the work delighted many of the gazing members of the social set, the artist himself is just as colorful. I discussed the artist with Felix Vercel.
His father was a butcher and wanted him to succeed in his business. But unfortunately, Venard was, since the age of 10, wanted to paint. He is a good drawer, and naturally it didn't please his father to do a job, or how do you call it, a job or that his father couldn't understand. So his father, at his age of 14, threw him out from the house, and he became a prize fighter in order to make a living, and still continuing painting. And finally, he succeeded at the age of 20 to become already a good painter. And he went out painting.
A Venard painting will be given to the Crystal Charity for their ball in December. An amateur artist should take inspiration in the fact that this butcher's son is making $10,000 on each painting. For Channel 8 News on the Move, this is Judi Hanna.
I think changes have taken place. They have not taken place probably as fast as the social changes have taken place, and so we really do need to catch up. I suspect that the next 10 or 15 years in higher education will see as many changes in the traditional patterns of our operation as far as programs are concerned and financing and so on as we've seen probably in the last 40 years in higher education. I look forward to it. I think it'll be fun.
What do you think some of those changes would be?
Well, for instance, the recognition that persons learn outside of the classroom and that some of the things that they do outside the classroom are very valid as a part of the winning a credential, which is a bachelor's degree. The bachelor's degree has become almost an employment credential in so many places, and not only in this country, but in Great Britain, the efforts are being made to evaluate all the experiences of an individual and to give them the credential when they're ready to receive it, regardless of whether they've been in college or not.
The reduced inbound rates are even being felt in Texas. The first rail shipment to leave the port of Catoosa, in fact, was steel transported to Catoosa, then transferred to rail and taken by Santa Fe to Wichita Falls, Texas. Sorry about that, Wes. We're working on it. Just turned out it was cheaper, and then you'll see on the Trinity it gets better and better. Oklahoma farmers today, and this is important, I think, in the agricultural pursuits of your state, too. Oklahoma farmers are realizing 9 cents per bushel more profit in their pocket in the area of wheat because of the water-compelled freight rate differential. A recent load of steel, for example, was shipped into Oklahoma at a savings of $8 a ton. Our goods and resources can now be priced competitively with other port markets of the world.
The word is that unless the back-to-work order is approved by Congress, the GM assembly plant in Arlington will have to shut down by tomorrow night. Information Director Harry Blair for GM in this area says there's one hope, though. If GM can scrounge enough parts around the plant may be able to keep going until the end of the week, but that's a dim hope. Although people at the giant GM plant and the Auto Workers Union doubt that the strike will continue, there is the possibility that it will go on. If it does, it'll halt the construction of 760 Chevrolets and Oldsmobiles per day and affect the employment of over 3,500 people. Union President Jim Thornell says that a layoff fund negotiated by UAW assures that members will not be hurting for money unless the strike lasts for too long a period. In that case, a lot of people are going to be hurting. This is Jay Lewis, Channel 8 News on the Move in Arlington.
The 4 amendments are being somewhat overshadowed by the Liquor by the Drink election in Justice of the Peace Precinct 1. That covers Central and North Dallas County. But there's confusion in some voting precincts because of the wet and dry designations. Precinct 145, for example, is in North Dallas. It's partly wet and partly dry. For that reason, voters who come to Temple Shireth, Israel, to vote go through lengthy procedures, sometimes, to establish whether they live in a wet or a dry district. In some cases, the location of the bedroom in the house is the deciding factor. It's being done on separate voting machines, one for wet residents, one for dry. The election judges determine who should vote in what machine, and the ballots are kept separate pending a court decision. The matter is almost certain to come before the courts, since nobody seems to know whether only the wet areas should count or all the votes. The matter is somewhat simpler in Dallas County than in Tarrant County because of the system of voting. For a report from Fort Worth, here's Channel 8's Jerry Park.